Designing your own study on paper 2 for AS level. So in this video, I'm not going to give you examples of different types of studies because honestly, the questions could be endless. So I'm going to give you a hint instead. This should be the very last piece of information that you study before you take your paper 2. And when the timer goes off and you open that paper, you better be going to the very last question and designing your own study first because it's fresh in your mind and it's worth a lot of points. So who? We're going to talk about who are we studying? What is our population? What is our sample? Our population is that overall what the people have in common, and our sample is the amount of people that is extracted from our population. So our sample, how many people are in our sample? What are their genders? What are their demographics? Do we need someone that is very particular? Do we need left-handed high school football players? And if we do, what is the best way to sample them? If we need a specific sample like that, we're going to be using volunteer sample, or maybe we don't and we just use an opportunity sample. Maybe we use random sampling. Explain your sample the best that you can. Next, we want to know what are you studying? And here's where you need to operationally define your independent variable and your dependent variable. What groups are you going to manipulate? If we're talking about birds, maybe you separate them by color. Maybe you separate them by species. Maybe you separate them by their ability to fly or not. But if you do, you have to operationally define what that means. Now tell me what you're measuring and tell me how you're going to measure it. That is going to be your dependent variable. Now that you have your sample, how are they going to be tested? Do you want them to only see one condition so there's less demand characteristics, or does it really not matter and you can use the same people over and over and over? Tell me if it's independent or repeated measures. Now think long and hard. What are you using? Is this a lab experiment? Are you going to have to create this setting, or is it a field experiment? Are you going to the participants' natural environment? And are you going to be using observations, interviews, questionnaires? If it's an observation, is it overt or covert? Are you going to use structured or unstructured interviews? Are your questions going to be closed or open? And then you better tell me what type of data it's going to elicit, qualitative or quantitative. Now you're going to tell me how you're going to do the study. And if you could think about creating your own board game and creating rules for that board game, this is like the steps and the standardized procedures that you're going to create for this study. I want it to be so detailed that you could literally give it to the next person and they could redo it the same exact way you did. You can be fancy and add some controls in there, but it needs to be detailed. And don't forget about the ethics. It's going to be really easy to say that you were confidential. People had the right to withdraw. Make sure people gave informed consent. And if you have to use deception, always debrief. Deception will lower demand characteristics.